me just state my position on the managerial situation at West Ham. As I understand it, there's a rumour that David Moyes has got 3 games left to keep his job. We don't have that information rubber stamped, so we don't know exactly how many points he has to accrue from those 3 games. So I'm going to guess, which is all we can do. I think if he gets 4 points from the next 3 games, he's safe. Now, I think the manner in him getting those 4 points is probably quite crucial. I think if he got no points from Arsenal and the next game is Brentford, he got 1 point, it may be precarious, by the way. However, I do think if he does it sort of like no points, 3 points, then 1 point, I think he keeps his job. A bit tenuous, but hopefully you understand where I'm coming from with that. Now, my guess on all of this is, my hunch is I think he'll do it. I think David Moyes will get 4 points within the next 3 games. There are certain factors like the mini-injury crisis, defensive injury crisis, whatever you want to call it. There are mitigating factors outside of his control at the moment. But I do think it looks like the team would probably have benefited from the break. I would hope that players like Jarrod Bowen are coming back to form, as Gio alluded to a couple of days ago in his video. I suspect he'll do it. However, I'm not oblivious to the outside noise, and particularly the very, very recent stories about Tuchel and Pochettino, and in particular that West Ham may be about to approach them. Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't particularly want to discuss this sort of stuff, but let's be fair, there's a World Cup on, there's no Premier League football, we're a West Ham channel, and I'm not really in the luxurious situation of having so many stories that I can pick and choose which ones to ignore. So, we'll go with this one. Now, the reason this has become prominent in the news again, because it's not a new story, this story has been around for the past 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe even before, when David Moyes was struggling to put a run of results together. However, it's back in the news because it's being discussed by a few journalists who are considered to be in the know, if you like, and they're suggested that our board are ready, or might be ready, to consider Tuchel and Pochettino. And when I heard that, I thought, well, that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous assumption. Because let's just pretend for a moment that they are going to do that. How would you feel if you were Tuchel or Pochettino? Just put yourself in that position. Surely, well, I would think that any club worth their salt would have contacted these managers already. And if you had done and you had decided that these two were the guys, the very best you could go for, and bear in mind we do have a history of going for managers that are out of work, surely you would have approached them already, wouldn't you? To actually get to a point where you're almost leaking the information out there by saying, and I'm not saying I necessarily believe these leaks, by the way, but as I say, we'll go with the story that's out there. What you're saying is, oh, we may well approach you if our manager does crap, and then we may speak to you, sort of borders on a little bit arrogant, really. It's certainly, I don't find that as a massive selling point if I was one of those managers. Because if I was Tuchel or Pochettino, and I think both of them, by the way, and I want to say this now, I think both of them are underachievers. For their status in the game, I think they've achieved less than their status suggests. Certainly Pochettino, obviously Tuchel has won the Champions League. We'll get to their respective records in just a second. But if you assume that they both think themselves as top quality managers, and I think they both do, I believe they're a level below the very, very top guys, but are they really going to stick around to wait for David Moyes to be sacked? Surely if I was them, I'd be saying to the board, no, if you want me, come and appoint me now. I'm not waiting around for you to decide. I'd say no, thank you very much. I can't think in any other, in anything else. I've racked my brains. I've tried to make comparisons to eBay purchases and company buyouts and buying shares and all sorts of things, where you're basically saying, I really like you, but I might come back later. Basically, you're my second choice, which is what you're saying by saying we're going to stick with David Moyes, but you're my second choice. Maybe, just maybe, football managers are fine with this stuff. Maybe they've just accepted that this is the nature of the career that they're in. That maybe, just maybe, they have to wait for someone to lose their job. But I would think at the very top, they don't want to do that, and they don't want to do that at all. I've had a little look at their careers. I had it wrong on Tuchel. In my mind, I sort of had it that Tuchel had inherited But I sort of had in my mind that he'd served his apprenticeship under Klopp. And I don't know. I got that wrong. I've had a little look now. And what I've seen is quite good. But he's certainly not the high. He's not Carlo Ancelotti. Let's put it that way. And when I say that, in terms of, things he's won. But to be fair, he's young. He's 49. Managerial terms, 49. He is young. Before I talk about Tuchel and Pochettino, this video is sponsored by the OneFootball app, which you can download by clicking the link below. The best thing about the OneFootball app, aside from the fact that it's free, is that you can tailor it to your own specifications. You can make that app what you want it to be. If you just want it about international football, then you tell it. If what you want is you just want it to be about West Ham, then you tell it. You say, I support West Ham, and it will filter out all the crap that you don't want. It will go around all the internet, all the newspapers, literally cherry-picking any story with West Ham in it. A very clever algorithm or something like that. I don't begin to understand how that works. Then it basically bundles them up in one package, delivers them to your phone, so you only have to read the West Ham news. It saves you the time of going to have to search around the internet for all the West Ham stories. If you're going to download it, please do use the link below. They'll know you've come from Hammers Chat. So Tuchel was at Mainz before he was at Borussia Dortmund. He did okay. He was a youth coach there first. He took them over. He was there for about 3 years. At one point, he got them up to 7th in the Bundesliga, which is pretty good for a club of that size. He was in 5th at one point. He had one finish where he was down in 13th. Hey, look, this stuff can happen. But he showed enough promise during that time that he was going to go on to be Klopp's replacement at Borussia Dortmund. Now, this was a path that Klopp had followed. Klopp was also at that club. He made the same journey from there to Borussia Dortmund. However, what I didn't realise was, and I guess I should have done, because let's be fair, that Bundesliga now is not a competitive tournament. It's just not. It's a procession whereby Bayern Munich win the league every season. That's just what happens. Borussia Dortmund get praised a lot, and there's a lot to like about Borussia Dortmund, the way they recruit, but really, the whatever they call it, the yellow wall, and it's impressive. The fans make a lot of noise, and it's really well run. That club's really well run. Despite the talent they've had through the door, despite how well run it is, they've not won. They can't bother. They cannot impact the Bundesliga title. And in fact, the thing you've probably got to admire most about Borussia Dortmund now is the fact they sell well. Well, even whether you sell poorly or whether you sell brilliantly, you're still a selling club. You're just selling. They're selling still the same thing. And that's what they're doing. And it's just hedged. I don't blame them. I think it's just hedged that way, German football. Anyway. So I shouldn't have been surprised that Tuchel didn't win the league at Borussia Dortmund. The only thing that Tuchel won at Borussia Dortmund was the cup, and he won it once. And with that in mind, I'm amazed he even got offered the job at Paris Saint-Germain. I really am. I look and I think, well, if you look what Paris Saint-Germain are doing. They're buying Messi, they buy Mbappe, they buy Neymar, they buy these wonderful, wonderful players. You would think they would go out and get the very, very best manager. Tuchel wasn't that when they got him from Borussia Dortmund. They weren't getting a winner. They just weren't. As I say, it's the equivalent of winning the FA Cup or whatever it is. I forget the name of what they call it in Germany. It's up there somewhere. Anyway, it's up there. I've scrolled through loads of text reading about his stuff. Look. Don't get me wrong. Look, he did okay. He did okay. And when I say okay, he won some titles. This is what I mean. I think his CV is inflated. I think if you or I went to Paris Saint-Germain with their budget, and when I say you or I, you'd go there. You could buy what you wanted. So with that, you'd go and get. If you got the job and I got the job, we'd go around the world football and we'd go and get some brilliant coaches, right? Basically, your job is to pick the team and do the team talk. I think, for the same reason I suspended Bundesliga, for all the financial advantages that they've got at Paris Saint-Germain, I think it's fair to say that we'd win a league title there at some point. Buy who you want, have the best coaches you want. You're just, I think you'd manage it, right? So he is going to win a world title, and he's going to win a French league title there. I don't wish to belittle that, but hey, look, I guess I just have. What he did do is he made them runners-up in the Champions League, which is ultimately why he lost his job. That's not what they want there. That's not why they are. Well, they've not spent the Qatari billions to become runners-up. He went to Chelsea and he won the Champions League at Chelsea. Really well done. Okay, really well done for that. That's good. But again, let's be fair. It's not like he's taken Hartlepool all the way up through the leagues and won the Champions League, is it? You know, he's got the very best jobs there. The other trophies there, they're the trophies like the Super Cup and stuff like that. They're trophies I'm not saying they're not earned, but they're not holding the same prestige because they're one-off games. It's not like you have to necessarily qualify for them. You just basically, the Europa Cup winner plays the Champions League winner, stuff like that. It's like the Club World Cup. I just think his CV is inflated, right? And that being said, I still think he's good enough to manage West Ham. Let me just get that right here. However, apparently, I don't know how true this is. Apparently, Todd Bowley or whatever his name is came in at Chelsea, found him a difficult character to deal with. This is not the first time this has happened. They were saying exactly the same thing. If you look, read through his stuff, just spend half hour reading through Thomas Tuchel. That it's said on 3 separate occasions, on 3 different clubs, he's difficult. He's difficult to deal with. I don't know whether that's true or whether that's not, but I think the last thing we need, given our owners, is a manager that's difficult to deal with. So I'm not sure whether he's the top guy and the best guy for the job. And I mean at the elite level. For West Ham, he may well be absolutely good. What I would hope we would get is actually the guy that was the manager at Mainz, the guy that was employing these different tactical innovations, that the high press, the overload, all of this stuff. What he definitely is tactically switched on. He is tactically very, very switched on. And I think that's something that David Moyes isn't. I think David Moyes lacks that tactical flexibility. So there's the reasons for and against, if you like. I don't think they're massive reasons against. I'm just saying, I don't think he is. He's not Pep Guardiola. He's just not. That's not what his record is. And to be fair, he probably when Paris Saint-Germain went and got him, he was out of work. He'd already left Borussia Dortmund. You know, he spent a lot of time out of work. You know, so anyway, the other one's Pochettino. I guess you could make the same arguments in French football before that. Again, same thing. He got to a final, Champions League final with Tottenham. I think in many respects, Pochettino would probably be a better fit for West Ham United because the way for his record of what he did at Tottenham, particularly in bringing through the youngsters. That being said, Tuchel brings through youngsters. When I had a look through all his stuff there, he's got a good record of bringing youngsters through. I certainly think that both of those managers wouldn't neglect the academy players that are playing well in the way that it appears is happening at the moment. I don't think you would get that. But all that being said and done, I'm not sure they'd want to come to West Ham anyway. I think the longer we leave it, the more precarious situation West Ham are in. Because if in another 3 games, if you assume that that's what David Moyes has got and he fails, then we're further down the league. We are actually in the bottom 3, right? At the moment, we're not. Basically, the West Ham job was far more attractive at the start of November than it will be at the start of January, which is part of the problem. But it's not just that, it's the messaging of it. Basically, your backup. That's what we're saying to them. If we are genuinely interested, which I don't believe necessarily, I'm not sure they are. If they are genuinely interested as well, and they are genuinely listening to our offers, which I'm not convinced about as well, then I do wonder if it really helps our cause at all. If we're basically saying to them, can you just hold on a bit, please? You're back up. Because if I was them, whilst I've basically just I've just sort of given reasons why I would lessen their achievements in the game, I am still adamant that they both think they're elite level managers. I've no doubt that both Tuchel and Pochettino consider themselves to be the equal of Guardiola and Ancelotti or whoever else. You know, those elite managers with resumes of loads of league titles and multiple Champions Leagues and stuff like that. At the very top echelon. I've no doubt that they think they're in that category. And if they are in that category, and they think they're in that category, then you also have to assume they've got a whopping great ego, which, again, I think you have to have at the top level of any sport, by the way. And if you do think you're an elite manager, and you have a whopping great ego, and what's happening is Gold Sullivan are approaching you and saying, oh, excuse me, we think we'd sort of quite like you as manager, but we're not sure So what we'll do is we'll come back in 2 months' time, and then we might employ you if West Ham get beaten by Brentford. Don't sound great, does it?